I call this meeting to order and ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Daney? Gansey?
Here.
Gunstein?
Here.
Hopkins?
Here.
Laporte?
Here.
Swansky?
Here.
President Wallace.
Here. We've requested that Reverend Susan Tyrell of the Emmanuel United Church of Christ do our invocation this evening. Reverend, thank you for being here.
So let's pause for a moment. Lord, your world continues to distract us. From weather events to violence to the many activities that cloud our intentions to listen to you, we ask your Holy Spirit to once again be here tonight. May the leaders and the residents of Bartlett continue to work towards solutions and positive outcomes for its people. Help each to focus on the positive and allow your Spirit to move them in directions of peace and goodwill. As they seek to navigate issues and challenges set before them, may you touch each with your gentle and creative grace. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This brings us to our consent agenda this evening. All items listed on the consent agenda will be enacted without any separate discussion. Does anyone like to add or remove anything from the consent? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, which will be including this evening the board and committee minutes from January 3, 2022. The consent will also include bill list from January 17, 2023.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Trustee Daney, seconded by Trustee Hopkins. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Gunstein?
Yes.
Hopkins?
Yes.
Laporte?
Yes.
Swansky?
Yes.
Daney? Yes. Gansey?
Yes.
That motion carries. Next item this evening is the Treasurer's Report. Mr. Treasurer.
Thank you. Included in the board packets tonight is the Treasurer's Report for the month of November. Also included is the sales tax report. We did receive $319,337. That was up about $15,000 from the prior year. MFT report, we received $140,270. That was down $4,000, but pretty even with the last few months. And we added last month was the LGDF, or the local share of state income tax revenue. That report is listed there as well. It shows $419,871 for the month of November. Our total for the year is $4,113,000. That's at the current rate. At the 10%, it would be about $6.7 million. That's it for the Treasurer's Report, unless there's any questions. Thank you.
I know we have a resolution this evening regarding this number, but as I stated earlier, every time we do a Treasurer's Report, I'd like to give the public a general idea of how much we're losing because of our state government withholding the general distributive fund. So do you have that number, Mr. Treasurer? Cumulative number. I thought I had a sheet in here somewhere.
Our resolution is listed $26 million, and that's from 2011 to 2022.
So $26 million from 2011 to 2022.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. All right. Thank you, sir. No President's Report this evening. Does anybody have any questions for staff? Town hall portion of the meeting. If anyone would like to address the board, kindly step up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and try to keep your comments to 3 minutes. Would anybody like to address the board at this time? Chris, is there anyone online that would like to address the board at this time?
No, there is not.
Thank you, Chris. Next item we have this evening is standing committee reports. First standing committee report is Building and Zoning Committee, Chairman Hopkins.
Thank you, President Wallace. We do not have anything to report tonight.
Thank you, Chairman Hopkins. Community and Economic Development Committee, Chairman Gansey.
Thank you, President Wallace. We also have nothing to report tonight.
Thank you, Chairman Gansey. Finance and Golf Committee, Chairman Daney.
Thank you, Mr. President. We do have one item on the agenda this evening. Thank you, Mr. President. We do have one item on the agenda this evening. It's a resolution urging the restoration of the local government distribution fund for Illinois municipalities. And what you had just asked about the $26 million, well, the memo states, the resolution will state, the memo will state, in the previous General Assembly, the LGDF was increased by 0.1% to 6.16%. Although there was an increase prior to 2011, the LGDF has been mutually agreed upon to be at a level of 10% and was for 24 years.
42 years.
42 years, you're right. The governor and our newly elected officials should look at cuts in their own budget to shore up, and we do that annually here. The governor and the newly elected officials should look at their cuts in their own budgets to shore up the state's financial position, as opposed to looking at the LGDF as a security blanket. In early 2022, there were two bills in the General Assembly to increase the LGDF from 6.06% to 8%. Both failed. This resolution urges an increase back to the original 10%. We join the DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference and the Northwest Municipal Conference advocating for this increase to fund infrastructure, public safety, pensions, and other critical community obligations. The village has lost $26,536,813 in revenue. Let me repeat that. $26,536,813 in revenue, while at the same time state income tax revenue has grown by 195%. The state's financial mismanagement should not be solved on the backs of its municipalities to the detriment of our residents. And with that, I'll make a motion for the resolution. I move to approve resolution, I've got it here, 2023-03-R, a resolution urging the restoration of the local government distributive fund for Illinois municipalities.
Second.
Moved by Trustee Daney, seconded by Trustee Sawanski. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Hopkins?
Yes.
Laporte?
Yes.
Sawanski?
Yes.
Daney?
Yes.
Gansey?
Yes.
Gunstein?
Yes.
That motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. President. That's all we have this evening.
Thank you, Chairman Daney. License and Ordinance Committee, Chairman Gunstein.
Thank you, President Wallace. Tonight we have two items on our agenda. The first one is resolution approving the intergovernmental agreement for conveyance of Bartlett Park from the Village of Bartlett to the Bartlett Park District. The Village of Bartlett and the Bartlett Park District entered into a lease agreement for Bartlett Park commencing January 1st, 1972, and has expired on December 31st, 2022. The lease states that the village determined that it is the best interest of the people of Bartlett to turn the function of planning, operating, and maintaining this park system and recreational programs in the village to the Bartlett Park District. The lease outlines maintenance responsibilities, indemnification, and utilities payments. With that, I'm going to turn this over to our staff. Well,
You can move to approve.
I'm going to move to approve
Right.
Resolution 2023-04-R, a resolution approving the intergovernmental agreement for conveyance of the Bartlett Park from the Village of Bartlett to the Bartlett Park District.
I'll second that.
Does anybody have any questions?
Moved by Trustee Gunstein, seconded by Trustee Daney. Is there any discussion? I think there is.
I was hoping there would be a more global view on transferring the majority of the park district or properties that the village owns back to the park district or to the park district, and I just don't see that fundamental plan here, and I know it's going to take some time, so that's kind of what I'm waiting to see before I would approve this personally.
I know that we had some discussion around other parks. So does anyone else have any other discussion, any other things they'd like to bring up?
Well, the only thing I'd like to state is the fact that this lease has expired, and I know we have entered into agreements with other leases, which are coming up at a later date, and I think those should be discussed at that time. I think we should definitely look at these on a case-by-case basis.
Can I ask a few questions on, like, what changes would we see with this transfer?
As it stands now, the Park District does all the maintenance at the park. They do all the programming at the park. The only thing that we do as owners of the park is we sign off on, for example, a grant application or something where the owners have to participate. Currently, the village was responsible for the upgrade to the electrical service. That is largely because of our franchise agreement with ComEd provides for free electricity service to municipal facilities. So the only change is that the Park District would be paying a utility bill for electricity.
So why is it important for the Park District? Why would they want this?
Rita, I'm going to defer you.
We ask her to step to the podium.
Can you go up to the microphone? I think can't hear everything. Thanks.
Just for the record, that's Rita Fletcher, the director of the Park District.
I'm sorry. Okay, so it really comes down to the Park District programs the facility. We have everybody sign off on everything. The only thing the village does is for, like, when we applied for a grant through the state for the playground, we had to get a sign off from there. So it's like, why not just like all of our other parks that we take care of, just own it. Like Rosica Park, Kohler Fields, we don't take care of those, so that's why those aren't even on our radar at this point. It would be a big discussion for us. That's why, Mr. Trustee Hopkins, we haven't looked at those because we don't program those. Bartlett Park, we program, we utilize.
And then I noticed in the contract we have the 2 events that we currently have there now. I guess one of my worries is that we've been having really good momentum with these events. People seem to love them. If we want more, what does that entail for us if we were to bring up events? Like, is it simple, like we ask to lease the park for the day? What would prohibit us from?
Well, it would be just like any other group, like Oktoberfest, for example. They just fill out a request form to use the park. So that's all it'd be. If you decide you need to create 3 more new events, we can do that. Merry and Bright, we're growing with it, so we feel it's our event too, so you'd never have to worry about that event. But if you wanted to create a new event, same thing. The big difference that the Park District does now is if anything's more than a 1-day event, we don't hold it out at Bartlett Park. We hold it at other parks because of the incredible amount of use we're getting at the playground.
So in essence, what you're telling us is really nothing is changing. If we want to schedule a new event, the village wants to do something, there'll be cooperation between the Park District and the village.
Absolutely. And then what's really great is how well the village staff and the Park District staff work together. And we like to support you guys because you support us. So we would never say, oh, you can't have it. We want you to have any event you want, as long as it's, appropriate for the Park District.
I want to capitalize on something that Trustee Gansey had mentioned. Being that the two events are listed here, I would like it to be drafted in the sense that the village can have additional events there in discussion about it. Because I'm not saying, right now, there's a great rapport between the two taxing bodies. And 10 years from now, when most of us are gone, we want to kind of make sure that that still is intact legally rather than verbally.
Well, I think at any time, anybody can put in a request to use any park throughout the park district. So, and we don't have that in writing. That's just normal, everyday programming for us, is somebody would just come in and say, I would like to rent this park to have an event. So that's all that would be.
Well, if someone came up to you right now and said that they wanted to rent the park for the first Friday in December, would you say, okay, fill out the application, or would you say, well, no, that's our Marion Bright, and the village hasn't had a chance to do that yet?
I can tell you the Marion Bright event is already booked out through 2025 by my staff. So we've already we know National Night Out is always the first Tuesday in August. Marion Bright is always the first Friday in December, and they're already booked out. So no concerns about that at all, because all the staff knows that, and they actually did it before I even said a word. They said, oh, no, we've already booked everything out through 2025.
What's the advantage for the park district to take Bartlett Park?
Like I said, it's just because we've been overseeing it. Why keep leasing it? It's just one of those, it's very simple. You know, if we're asked, doesn't it make sense to just give it back to us? You guys are saying it wasn't ever, when it was first, the park district was first established in 1964. It was given to the park district while they got hold of what they were doing. Now, we're an accredited agency. We're one of the only 54 park districts in the state of Illinois who are accredited. We feel we deserve what was supposed to be given to us 50 years ago, and that's what we're saying. Isn't it time to trust us? The community supports us. You guys are the only ones who are sort of saying, well, should we give it away? We're not asking you to give it away. We're asking you to give it to the park district because we think we've earned your respect.
So how do you feel with the other parks then that are village owned? What's the long-term plan?
Absolutely no plan at this point, because that was just brought up to us in the summer about, you know, what does the park district think about the other parks? We haven't given it much thought. We've, you know, talked to the board, said, hey, this is, you know, an idea that's been floated by us, but we have not done any due diligence, anything like that. We know you guys are still talking about the parking lot at Rizika Park. You have things you got to figure out before we'd even talk to you guys. So I don't want to say, yes, we're going to take it. Does it make more sense that the park district oversees all the parks in the village? Absolutely it does. But you guys control them, so I can't come up and say, you need to give me this. It has to be you guys saying, would you like it, and would you take it over for us because we want to get out of the business?
So what would it take for us to be divested of the parks as the village? All of them. What would make you happy, ideally?
Oh, I can't answer that question. Great question. I couldn't answer that right now because that would involve talking to staff, talking to board, the Park District Board, because there's no question taking on those types of properties, we would have to look at everything from the investment to staffing levels, and because that's a big, those are both big parcels of property that we want to maintain to our standards, so that would incorporate, you know, hiring staff to bring it up to where we want it to be and allocating the proper funds.
And there is some homework on our end too. You know, the beginning of this conversation was this summer that the Bartlett Park lease was coming up in December. We have an easement agreement that also came up for Kent Circle, so we were focused on those two. We broadened the discussion after the comments from the board about what about all the other parks. We started looking at that. There are some ownership and other constraints that I think we have to puzzle through with Kohler Fields and with Rizika. The very complicated relationship with ComEd and whether or not that is that parcel is even in the village, so we have to do there's some work that has to be done on our end as well. I'm sure that the Park District, like they were willing to have a conversation about Bartlett Park, you know, I'm sure they're willing to sit down and talk to us about a longer range transfer. But of course, the impact is much greater on the Park District than it is on us. So they would have more homework to do.
Right. Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, I do. Rita, something came up that I never thought about before, and I know you probably can't answer this specifically, but since I can remember, back when Mayor Melchert was here, we've been trying to figure out a place for some type of an outdoor amphitheater, a band shell or something. And the back part of that park seems like the perfect place to put something like that, because there's really no other space downtown any longer. So I don't know, that would be one of the things that I think that the village, we'll probably talk a little bit about it during strategic planning, but that would be something that I think would be a real attribute to the village. I mean, if you drive around every other village in this area, every place has some type of an outdoor amphitheater of some sort. So I'm just wondering if that's something that you guys have thought about on your radar as far as putting something like that somewhere out in a park where there's bands and stuff?
I'm glad you brought that up. Because actually this fall, I took my board out for, we went out on a 3-hour park tour. And we looked at parks in different areas and talked about what do we want to do with these going forward in the future. And a band shell was discussed. And I don't know if anybody has seen the one in South Elgin. Mm-hmm. I ride my bike by there a lot. It's great. And so we are starting to say, where could that go? And so we're looking at that because I think it is. And we're like, okay, where can we find that we have parking and we can do some of this? So it's on our radar totally.
Okay, good.
I would second that. I think that the Bartlett Park is a great spot for that.
Actually, it's only 3.5 acres. We're looking at a park that's bigger.
Yeah.
Because
that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, you want something bigger for that because then you have spot for a number of people. We have an idea. I don't want to throw it out right now.
Yeah.
But it's a bigger one, and we really think it could work because we've had some big events out there at this park now that we've seen it work.
Yeah, you'd have problems with parking there also. Bartlett.
Well, and then the residents, I mean, just because the band shell's there doesn't mean the local residents want it there.
Yeah.
You put it out somewhere a little more remote.
While you're up there, I do have a question for you. What do you think, roughly, that it costs the Park District in your lease to maintain and operate that park on a yearly basis right now?
Oh, I couldn't tell you.
I mean, you guys do the snow removal, you do the maintenance of the grass, you do the maintenance of the log cabin.
Mm-hmm.
You've put X amount of dollars into park sidewalks, ADA compliant, egress out of the log cabin, and I know you get a minimal or a nominal amount of rent for those parties and stuff.
You know what we spend money on that you never think about is the gazebo. You know how much vandalism happens out there that we're constantly repairing the, what are they called? The slats out there.
My point is, if you guys did not have a lease and this was brought back to the village, it would fall on Public Works to now take care of this property. So you guys have been doing it for 50 years, plus give or take, and that is something that you've already budgeted for. We would have to revisit our entire budget in an event that was not transferred.
Well, yeah, if the Park District all of a sudden says, you know what, if you guys want to keep it, keep it. You guys start maintaining it.
Right. So
that's not the business we're in.
I'm happy that both taxing bodies have good synergy right now, and I think there's a lot to be said for that for all of our taxing bodies in our town. And for me, if we can keep that going, this is, to me, is really not an issue. But I think it's important that the contract of the transfer is ironclad so that when your successors, Paula's and yours, are moved on and this board is turned over, that the future of Bartlett has the same community feeling that it has today, and that is important, I mean, for me anyway, so.
Thank you. I'm reading the contract, and I'm sure that this would be, to his point, your thought process right now, but again, we don't know about future boards. I wouldn't like to come back 15 years later or 20 years later and see that some of the green space has been torn up for some type of court or something that's a concrete type situation.
Well, I can tell you one thing, because we have an OSLAD grant that's administered by the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, we're not allowed to do things out in that park without any approval from them. So you don't have to worry about those things, and that's for 30 years.
So essentially, the park will remain the same for 30 years from today, 30 more years?
From when we got the OSLAD, which was in 2018, I think.
Okay.
So, yeah. So they put big restrictions on what you can do at a park once they give you money to make improvements. So, like I said, we want to preserve open space. That is what one of our core beliefs are for the Bartlett Park District, is preserve and maintain open spaces.
Well, I guess I mean not designated for team sports.
Oh, it's too small. Bartlett Park is too small for that. It could be a practice for a kindergarten or soccer team, but that's it. The rest of it, there's not enough space. There used to be 2 ball fields there.
Remember that, yeah?
Yeah, they're gone now, and they'll never come back.
Be a chain link backstop.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's
The
how old I
T-ball
am.
field and the chain link, and then a regular backstop.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So with that said, there's no financial change to any resident in town of Bartlett from either taxing body by this transfer happening. So I just want to make that known. Anybody else have any questions?
That being said, will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Laporte?
Yes.
Swansky?
No.
Daney?
Yes.
Gansey?
Yes.
Gunstein? Hopkins?
No.
Motion carries. It's 4-2.
I lost count.
4-2.
4-2, it passed.
The motion carries.
Let me be clear. Yeah, that passed even the way we had it originally, was the Intergovernmental Transfer Act, which the statute was a little unclear. It says 2/3 of the legislative body in municipal government. Does that include the mayor or not? That has been interpreted by case law not to. So we didn't know if the 2 would be on the same day. Last time, the Park District was going to adopt an ordinance on the same day we were going to adopt the resolution. We weren't sure, so we added a provision in the resolution before you to also approve it by home rule authority. It's a moot point because there were 4 trustees in favor, so it would pass it either under the Transfer Act or under our home rule power.
So number 2 is unnecessary.
Okay.
So we're not
The
going to,
motion carries.
Carried.
and we're not going to read the second,
You would still do the second.
okay. So that brings us to our second
Vote doesn't matter.
resolution authorizing the transfer of real estate from the Village of Bartlett to the Bartlett Park District. The Village Board directed staff to work with the Park District to transfer Bartlett Park ownership to the Bartlett Park District. The Local Government Property Transfer Act authorizes any municipality to transfer real estate to another municipality or park district by vote of 2/3 of the trustees holding office. The Village Board also authorized authority to approve the conveyance under the village home rule powers requiring a majority, but allows village president to vote.
Make the motion.
I move to approve Resolution 2023-05-R, a resolution authorizing the transfer of real estate from the Village of Bartlett to the Bartlett Park District.
Second that motion.
Moved by Trustee Gunstein, seconded by Trustee Daney. Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Swansky?
No.
Daney?
Yes.
Gansey?
Yes.
Gunstein?
Yes.
Hopkins?
No.
Laporte?
Yes.
That motion carries.
That's all I have to report today.
Thank you, Chairman Gunstein. Police and Health Committee Chairman Sowanski.
Thank you, President Wallace. We have nothing on the agenda this evening.
Thank you. Public Works Committee Chairman Laporte.
I have, one item in the agenda. It's the Patricia Lane proposed stop sign. Due to resident and safety concerns, the Police and Public Works Department have reviewed Patricia Lane at the location referenced below for a potential stop sign location to increase safety. Based on staff review, the following changes would need to be made. There's a map in the packet attached for reference. Through streets, the following intersection will be designated as a through street. One stop sign will be installed at the following intersection: Ford Lane and Patricia Lane. Staff recommends amending section 6-11-1204.1, Schedule I, through streets to include the area referenced above. If there's no questions, I motion to approve ordinance 2023-06, an ordinance amending the Bartlett Municipal Code section 6-11-1204.1, Schedule I, through streets.
Second.
Moved by Trustee Laporte, seconded by Trustee Daney. Is there any discussion about the stop sign?
What prompted it? Was there like accidents? Oh, what prompted it? Were there accidents there? Or residents saying that?
We had a request from a resident, and the traffic unit went out and took a look at it. PW did as well, and came up with the location for the stop sign as well as the anticipatory sign for the stop itself.
Right, the main issue that was raised is cars are heading northbound towards Ford, and there's no stop sign right now, so they're making, majority, because to the east is a dead end, they're heading west, and if it's slick out or any type of, if they're not slowing down at all, they're actually going into the yards on the north side of Ford. So they raised that concern to us. We looked at it with the police department and said, let's put a stop sign in. We'll do a stop sign ahead so that people are aware that they're going to have to stop at the stop sign. So hopefully they will now stop and then make their turn rather.
Because it's the one, like, if you come down the hill and you're going to turn left or right. So why wouldn't there be another one, like, on the left? Why is it just there?
Because the main movement is the vehicles moving north on Patricia to Ford. So cars are not stopping, and they're running straight ahead into the yards of the houses on the north side of the road.
Okay.
There's no issues going eastbound to southbound Patricia.
Going right into it.
The crash history at Deckard as well. Most of the three that we found are vehicles that were heading northbound on Patricia, approaching Ford Lane. In two of the incidents, two vehicles struck a light pole that was in the yard, and then on Christmas Eve, actually one of the cars actually landed right to the front of the residence.
Okay.
I know the driveway lines up right with that street.
Yeah.
And the cars have ended up at their garage door. So I talked to that resident.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Any other discussion?
This is what you want to see on Christmas Eve.
Ho, ho, ho. Hearing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Daney?
Yes.
Gansey?
Yes.
Gunstein?
Yes.
Hopkins?
Yes.
Laporte?
Yes.
Swansky?
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you, Chairman Laporte. Any new business that anyone has for the good of the order?
I just have a question. I haven't seen, we used to get yearly reports on our mine and audits, and I haven't seen one in probably pre-COVID. Is that going to resume?
Yeah, our auditor died.
Oh, yikes.
Chrissy, I think we have another Oh, he had a stroke, I'm sorry. He didn't die, I'm sorry, I had that wrong. Either way, he wasn't going down in the mine,
Okay.
but we have contacted him, right?
He said he was finishing up his report from 2021, and then he was going to start his report for 2022.
Okay, so he's okay.
He is okay. He has recovered.
Thank you, that was my only question.
Speaking of the mine, if any of the trustees have not had an opportunity to tour the mine, I would strongly suggest you do that.
How do you do that?
Absolutely
Just
amazing.
have staff arrange a visit. They usually like to have 2 or 3 of you together, but it's worth talking to residents about, as deep as that is.
I'm in.
Anything else?
I just have one comment.
Okay. No birthdays or anything, Ray?
Yeah,
No.
I've got something much better than that. No, we did that earlier. My beautiful wife of 55 years, retired this afternoon.
Yay. Go Peg.
And she's not going to be happy because I know said in public, but,
Did she retire from work and from the marriage, or just work?
well,
Oh, Ray just
we'll
got a
find
full-time
out about
job.
that, we'll find out about that very shortly.
Any questions for staff? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We will be adjourning later on into executive session to discuss pursuant to Section 2C1 of the Open Meetings Act.
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Daney, seconded by Trustee Gunstein. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Gansey?
Yes.
Gunstein?
Yes.
Hopkins?
Yes.
Laporte?
Yes.
Swansky?
Yes.
Daney?
Yes.
We are adjourned.